Okay. What's up, everybody? Good morning. Back home. Welcome to a Tuesday edition of Morning Scone presented by Brock, the Baton Rouge Orthopedic Clinic, counting down the days to Brock, Rock, and Wine. A little more than 3 weeks away inside the Tiger Stadium. Going to be a great event. Looking forward to being there and hope to see many of you there as well. Get your tickets today at brortho.com, brortho.com. Of course, Parish Construction and Roofing, parishbuilt.com. Tomorrow, going to see Crystal Poche over at Restored Motions. Every time I go out of town, I sleep in like a hotel bed or something like that. Always just my back stiffens up, and always I need to go see Crystal every time I get back after leaving town. So we'll do that tomorrow. Okay. I will say some good mornings. Hope your day's off to a great start. Slept in, off all week. Not going to lie to you. Just woke up. I woke up at 6, was going to go to the gym, and got back in bed. And eyes popped open around like 8:40. I was like, okay, needed it. So I'll take advantage of the rest when I can get it. I'll go to the gym a little bit later. We'll say some good mornings here, though. But if you notice on the thumbnail of the title, I do have Will Campbell chasing some history. You might have seen that Will Campbell and Harold Perkins have been named Walter Camp preseason All-Americans. Will Campbell first team, Harold Perkins second team. And you may shrug your shoulders, roll your eyes, and say, what's the big deal, Matt? Will Campbell's great. We know it. He's in everybody's mock draft as a top 10 pick. And of course, he's going to be in everybody's All-SEC and All-America team. This is the part that may surprise you a little bit. So, if you go back and look in the history of LSU football, it might surprise you how few offensive tackles from LSU have been first-team All-Americans. And I'd be willing to bet that none of you, unless you've already listened to today's episode of Locked on LSU, please subscribe on your favorite podcast app or on YouTube. I would guess that none of you could name for me LSU's last or most recent first-team All-American offensive tackle. That's a lovely accent you have. New Jersey. Austria. Well then. Good day, mate. Let's put another shrimp on the barbie. Let's not. Dumb and Dumber. I got it. Beautiful job, Brian. Started the day with an accent. With a Dumb and Dumber quote. Let's see. So if you think you know the last LSU offensive tackle to be a first-team All-American, drop in the comments. I'm curious if anybody can. I doubt you will, unless if you've looked it up. But no cheating, no looking it up. No takers so far. I'm sure people are going to say, what about Andrew Whitworth? Nope. Lyle Collins, he was a second-team All-American. The last time LSU had a first-team All-American offensive tackle was Lance Smith in 1984. It's been 40 years. 40 since LSU's had a first-team offensive tackle as recognized by the organizations that make up the consensus All-American lists. Lance Smith in 84. Robert Dugas was a first-team All-American in 1978. Other than that, y'all, like Sid Fournette was listed as an All-American back in 1954, but he was a two-way guy, and it was just different. Guys like Fred Miller and Billy Truax and Remy Prudhomme, like guys that played both ways and were just listed as tackle, like offensive, defensive. So, I mean, really, if you go beyond the era, like into the more modern era, it's Robert Dugas in 1978, Lance Smith in 1984. That's it. Like, that's the list. So Will Campbell, minimum, is trying to become the first LSU offensive tackle in 40 years. 40 years to become a first-team All-American, which is crazy. But I just saw this one from Steven. I commented on your tweet, but is Campbell ready to join Faneca, Whitworth, Mawai, Mount Rushmore, or who would be your quick off the dome top four? You know what, man? Like, I think so. If we're going all time, and that's tough. Like a guy like Sid Fournette was a 2-time first team All American, but that was in the mid '50s. So I just don't have great perspective there, right? Like in my lifetime and guys I've seen, see Faneca was. I'm sure Faneca's a no doubter. All American first round draft pick, yes, no doubter. Kevin Mawai was a really good player at LSU on really bad teams, and he would even acknowledge that. You know, I don't know how we don't include Ben Wilkerson. I mean, he didn't have really an NFL career at all because of his injuries, but Ben Wilkerson was I mean, he won the Remington and he was the best center in the country. And I mean, guy was a 4-year starter. I mean, I'd throw Ben Wilkerson on that list for his college career, probably before Kevin. I'd love to know Kevin's thoughts on that. Because look, the guy went on to be a Hall of Famer and arguably the greatest center in the history of the NFL, arguably. But you remember of 2 different all-decade teams, 6 or 8-time All-Pro. I mean, Hall of Famer. He's the greatest NFL offensive lineman LSU's ever produced. That's not even debatable. So it feels like he should be there. But if you're just talking college career, I don't know how you don't include Ben Wilkerson in that convo. Anyway. Okay, let's say some good morning, see what y'all got. We appreciate you for being there. YouTube, smash the like button, subscribe to the channel, Facebook, like the Matt Moscona page, share the post. Hey, Barry, good morning. Devin, good morning. Good morning. Brian Wynn. Barry, what's up, Uncle Scone? Good to see Olivia and co. Suck it, nerd. Talk about Uncle James. Poor Uncle James. Jaleel Dean, good morning. Robert Miller, good morning. Welcome home. Thank you. Stephen Miller, Gamolgan. I love the Gamolgans. That's a throwback, an Irfan Sayad original whenever he's in here. But I love that it's been sort of adopted. James McKinney, good morning. The GOAT, Thatcher Hurd in the portal. So here's a little bit of a spoiler. Yeah, Steven said feels like Hurd's just going pro. So here's a little bit of a spoiler. So I didn't talk about, and I totally forgot over the weekend to include Justin Lohr in the Locked on LSU episodes. And honestly, it was because that news just overlapped with A&M hiring a coach. And when we do, just as an FYI, I don't know if y'all care, but just as an FYI for those that are listening to Locked on LSU, so the podcast is Monday through Friday. It's 5 days. But if we want, we can do bonus episodes on the weekend, which I've chosen to do. And they're very rigid on how they want everything structured at Locked On. And the bonus episodes are only like 10 to 12 minutes. So the bonus episodes this weekend were about Texas A&M hiring Michael Early, and then Jason Kelly as the, bringing him in from Washington as well. So that was kind of how that impacted LSU. So I totally forgot to mention Justin Lohr. So it's on today's episode of Locked on LSU. But the feeling that I have about Lohr is the same I have about Hurd, which is, sometimes guys enter the portal, even though they're going to the draft, as a fallback plan. We saw this a couple of years ago when LSU took commitments from Carter Young and Jack Pineda. Carter Young was at Vandy, Jack Pineda was at Baylor, and both went into the draft and both got picked and signed, but both had been committed to LSU out of the portal as a fallback plan. So I think that's the same thing for Thatcher Hurd. It's, okay, the draft is coming. He's going to get picked and going to sign. I think there's a 95% probability that happens. But what if something screwy happens around the draft and he decides, you know what, I'm not signing? Doesn't like the team, doesn't like the offer, doesn't like the whatever. Well, he could always come back to LSU, but he's also now in the portal, which means he can go anywhere and pitch next year should he choose to. But you can't do that if you don't enter the portal by today, July the 2nd. So That's why, like, I feel the same about Justin Lohr. Justin Lohr pitched 2 years at Xavier, came here to step up in competition. He did. His ERA ballooned to near 6. He only threw about half the innings he did a year ago at Xavier. It just didn't go great for him. Well, he's a tall, long lefty who someone is going to take a chance on as a prospect. He went to the MLB draft combine out in Arizona. As I understand it, performed pretty well. And he's going to get picked. He's going to get picked and he's going to sign. But he also entered the portal just in case, because what happens if LSU's filled a roster and now they don't have a spot for you? Or there's a better opportunity somewhere else to actually go get innings next year. So that's why. But I'm not surprised to see Hurd enter the portal, or any other guys that might be looking at the draft this year to enter the portal just to give themselves options. Because remember, you can sign with the team wherever. You just have to be enrolled by the semester, but you can only go in the portal while the window's open, and that closes today. Katie LeBlanc, Morton Matt, where does Erica get her Sweeterita from? I can never find it. You talking about like the Skinny Girl brand? I mean, that's the thing I see in the fridge every now and again. I don't know. Probably Rouse's. I mean, we got a Rouse's by our house. She probably gets it there. I would guess that's where she goes. I feel like that's that's Bethany. What's her name? Bethany. Whose brand that is? The Skinny Girl drink brand. By the way, that's the name of the brand, the Skinny Girl. Just so you know, I'm not being offensive here. Bethany. Well, that's gonna drive me nuts. Let me look it up. Bethany Frankel. I was thinking like Kugel, but Bethany Frankel. That's who it is. Okay. Jaleel Dean, me and the boys taking a trip to BR for the Ole Miss game. Just got our tickets, hoping it's a night game, but it's our first time in Death Valley. Can't wait. That's awesome, man. I suspect Jaleel, and I could listen. I'll stand corrected if I'm wrong, and I'm not telling you something I know. I'm guessing just from deductive reasoning through a lot of info that I have. I think LSU is going to play, has a great chance of playing all night games in Tiger Stadium this year, because you don't have CBS making the first pick for 2:30 anymore. And if LSU wants night games in Tiger Stadium, which why wouldn't the league and the TV partners want great games at night in Tiger Stadium, then you can do that. So yeah, I think that's probably going to happen. I mean, fingers crossed, knock on wood and all that stuff. Brian Greer, good morning. Brad David, good morning. Caleb Falk, portal transfers have been somewhat quiet as of late for LSU. Hopefully got something good brewing. You mean guys coming in? I want to remind you, last year, whenever Gage Jump committed, it was the second week of July. Paul Skeens committed on July 29th. So again, you're going to vet options. A lot of guys maybe wait for semester to end, season to end before they take all their trips, wait till after the draft to make a decision, depending on where they might go. So it's very common, actually, that you will see more commitments in the roster continue to grow moving forward, because a lot of guys are still waiting on the draft. So it's just a very different process than we're accustomed to, like with football and basketball transfers, because baseball's draft is truly unique, where anybody can be picked and still make the decision to go back to school. Let's see, with Laviolette and Gohovac still in the portal, is there a chance we could get these guys on campus to make our pitch? Yeah, Joey B19, I'm gonna hold firm on this. Like, I know there was somebody who put out there that Laviolette was likely to land at LSU. I'd never heard that. From the jump, I was told Laviolette was going to Texas, getting a big NIL deal, and following Michael Early. And with Michael Early now being the A&M coach, I think there's a better chance he ends up staying at A&M. Big NIL deal in place for Michael Early. And I would say the same for Grahovac. So I don't feel good about either of those guys. I would love it if LSU was able to get in the mix, and I wouldn't put it past Jay Johnson, but it just feels like with the two schools that you're dueling with, as motivated as they are to spend right now and as deep a pockets because they're trying to stick it to each other. Like, you have two of the wealthiest schools in a urinating contest, trying to grab assets from each other. And I don't think LSU can compete there financially. So we'll see. But I still think, Caden Kent, Max Coffer are two you're keeping an eye on. I've told you all for a week now about Matthew Dallas, the lefty from Tennessee, who LSU's in on. At last I heard, they still felt good about Zach Root, the lefty from East Carolina, but I'll see if I can make a call and get an update on that today. I think, when you're talking about Max Coffer and then Bear Collins from St. Mary's, a couple of catchers that they're after, they need another catcher. Wyatt Hensler, the infielder, the third baseman from Penn, who's an A&M commit that LSU got in on now, had him on campus this past weekend. Those are the names that I keep hearing, and we'll see how the dominoes fall. Eric, where's Olivia? Olivia's at her house. Connor Smart, loving the shirt. Go Bears. Calici. Mark, good morning. Yeah, okay. I thought about Hurd. Hunter Eilers, morning. Scone, how did you meet Frank Frangie? As an LSU and Jaguars fan living in Jacksonville, you are my go-to for sports news. Awesome, Hunter. Thanks, man. Yeah, I've met Frank going to media days for all the years that we've gone. I'd say that to y'all often. It's the best part about going to SEC media days are all of the connections and contacts and networking that you're able to do. So for those that don't know, Frank Frangie is he's the afternoon host on 1010XL in Jacksonville, and he's also the radio voice of the Jaguars, and a great dude. So I'll see Frank here in a couple weeks at SEC Media Days. But yeah, Frank Frangie he's awesome. He's always good enough to come on the show. It's tough because our shows are on at the exact same time. So typically when I'm on his show, he's on my show. Typically we have to record something in advance. But like whenever Jacksonville played in New Orleans this past year on that Thursday, Frank was getting ready for the game, so I don't think he was doing his show that day, and so he was able to join us on the show for a preview, which is awesome. Samuel, back from vacay already. Hope you had a great time. We've been gone since Thursday, so 5 days, but it always never feels like it's long enough. But yeah, we had a great time. Thanks, man. Hey, Dad, good morning. Brett DeGrow, good morning. Mark, bad news for Houston and Lake Chuck, but good news for your roofing company, Matt. The storm's shifting north now. I haven't looked at any of the spaghetti models today, and honestly, Mark, look, man, nobody celebrates when a storm comes. It's one of those things that when there's work that needs to be done, you got to call somebody. Yes, and so obviously we'll help as many people as we can. So we're staffed and ready to roll, and if a storm comes, we'll be there. Anywhere, along the I-10 corridor in the southern coast of Louisiana, but as far as things that you can do now in preparation, I think we all know those answers. If you have limbs around your house, get them cut, so they don't fall on the house. If you have, projectiles outside, be mindful of that. I mean, all that stuff you'll do when the storm gets closer, but you want to try to prevent things from landing on your roof. If wind damage happens, it happens. There's nothing you can really do about that. But if you have an issue, we'd love to help. Will Pelicans trade Brandon Ingram today? Mark, I don't know, man. I wish you had some context of the inner workings of the Pels and what calls they're making, but it was interesting to me to hear them say that if they don't get an offer they want, they'll just keep Brandon Ingram on a lesser deal. I don't know why Brandon Ingram would take a lesser deal, but I hope they get a deal done, quite honestly. I think BI's a fantastic player. He's an all-star. He just doesn't fit what they're trying to do, and they need a big, especially since Jonas is out of town now. So you got to go get a more athletic big, and hopefully you can identify that person and get him for BI. Scott Sale, good morning. Wendell Norman, I think Will Campbell is better than Jake Long and Joe Thomas. Man, that's just really hard to say at this point. Like, you're talking about Joe Thomas, who was a first ballot Hall of Famer. What was Joe Thomas like, in his junior year at Wisconsin, going into his junior year at Wisconsin? I don't know. Jake Long at Michigan? I don't know. Those guys became top picks, and, sometimes it's really just dependent on the draft you're in. I mean, could Joe Alt have been the number one pick in those drafts? Probably, if you don't have depending on who's picking and if there's a quarterback at the top of the draft in that given year. But we'll see. Rocky, I thought I had you with Kevin Mawai. How in the heck did he never make All-American? Yeah, man. Again, he was a good player on bad teams. Remember, Kevin was also a guy who, as I remember correctly, played defense and switched. Or maybe he started at no, that's what it was. So here's the thing. So Kevin Mawai actually started 7 games at left tackle in 1990 as a freshman. And then as a sophomore, he became first team All SEC. He ended up playing 3 different positions in his sophomore year. He played 8 games at left tackle, 3 games at center, and 1 at left guard. Then as a junior, he played left tackle and was second team all SEC and a third team All American. So then as a senior, he moved to center and he started 11 games at center. So it was really like, he just didn't play his entire career at center. And that he's being a team guy, and that maybe hurt him a little bit as far as the awards and all this stuff. But that's why I knew I remembered it somewhere. But that's right. He played 3 different positions on the offensive line. He didn't settle at center till his senior year. It's kind of like y'all remember Ethan Posick? It was similar, right? Posick during his career, if I remember correctly, played every position on the offensive line at one point during his career. All right, please smash the like button, subscribe to the channel. Jaleel Dean, I feel like everyone on Twitter is going to Texas throat these past 2 days since they're now part of the conference, but no one has ever mentioned OU joining. LOL. Granted, I'm a little disconnected. I mean, I'm following a little bit on Twitter, but not being on air, I'm not as locked into all the conversation. I just think this year in particular, coming into the league where Texas is going to be a preseason top 5 team and Oklahoma isn't, right? I mean, they're coming off a 10-win season, but Oklahoma's projected at 7.5 wins over under. I don't know, man. Let's see. Hurd in the portal, was hoping he would stay. Now, he's going to sign. Again, he's going to sign. All right, catching up a little bit here. Yep. Wilkerson, it's just so unfortunate the injury he had, man. And to get hurt at the end of a blowout, being in the game at the end of a blowout was just, Anyway. Rex, what's going on? Toddy B had Lance Smith. I wonder if he looked it up. Coach Nate Green, good morning. Brad Peace, good morning. Gunner, hope you enjoyed vacation. We did, man. Yep. Toddy B, if you guessed without looking it up, you had it. I don't think many people would have had Lance Smith. It's been 40 years since LSU's had a first team All-American at tackle. That's at offensive tackle. That's been a minute. Yeah, again, hey, Kelly Gross, good morning. Again, for those that missed it, I'll reset. So Thatcher Hurd he entered the portal, but that's just to give himself options. You fully expect Thatcher Hurd is going to sign a pro deal. Guys after their junior year go pro, because that's when you still have leverage and you're going to make the most money. Thatcher Hurd is entering the portal strictly as a fallback plan in case the draft doesn't go his way. If it doesn't, Jay Johnson would welcome him back, certainly if he has a roster spot, but it also gives Hurd an opportunity to go somewhere else if the draft, something gets screwy. But I fully expect Thatcher Hurd is going to get picked somewhere in the top 5 rounds and is going to sign. Okay. Abner Neal, good morning. Cameron Carter, morning, Matt. Ready to hear some good portal news today? I hope so, too. It'd be awesome. Tiger Diver, morning, Scone, late start today. Brad David, is Mawai still in coaching? He is. He's a high school head football coach in Tennessee. He is at he was the head coach there just 1 year. Lipscomb Academy. That was in Nashville. Huh. It looks like their program got some type of postseason ban or something. Anyway, I need to reach out to Kev, man. I hadn't talked to Kev in a minute. God, great. I used to see him like when he was retired. He was coming up to the studio every week when he would do his his Wednesday hit with that was when Jordy and Derek were doing the morning show, and I'd see Kevin, saw him every week. They did that listener lunch promo where take a listener and a guest or whatever to TJ Ribs, and Kevin would come to that all the time, and they'd let me tag along. And God, I mean, I used to see him all. I just don't, it's life goes on, man. So I need to check in with Kevin. I don't know what he's doing. As a matter of fact, I'm actually having lunch today with Pete Jenkins. I thought of that because Kevin and Coach Pete are part of the Louisiana line camp. Coach Rod down there at Nichols that they put on every June that they had a few weeks back. So anyway, Coach Pete's in town, and so Coach Pete lives in Destin. And I told him the next time we're on vacation, I was going to give him a shout and we'd go have coffee. So I reached out to him on, I think Friday. I reached out to him and I said, I'm over here in Santa Rosa. Are you home? And he said, no, he's actually in Baton Rouge. I was like, well, I missed you. I said, I'm going to be back home on Monday evening if you're still around. So he is. So he and I are going to go have lunch today. So I'm looking forward to seeing Coach Pete. Anyway, that's what made me think of it because he and Kevin are part of the Louisiana line camp. Let's see. Vol Navy morning from Rocky Top. Been less than 48 hours. The entire SEC RDS Texas fatigue. Thoughts on how your QB situation will play out this year? Your record predictions, go Vols. You mean for LSU? I think Nussmeier is going to be LSU starter. And I think I'm going to land. I'll make a formal prediction later. But I think I'm going to land on 10-2 for LSU, and I think they're going to be a back of the playoff team, like one of the last at-large teams in at 10-2. I think the game at A&M is really tricky this year because it's the second of back-to-back road conference games, and we've gone over that before. But historically, it is very, very hard and rare to win back-to-back road conference games. And that's where it falls for LSU this year, going to College Station. That just feels like a tricky spot. And LSU just hasn't had a ton of success there the past few times they've gone. And then maybe they split the home games against Ole Miss and Bama, or maybe if they win those two and lose on the road at Florida, which I know would really stink, but Florida on the road is the week after Bama, so that's a tricky spot. But anyway, there's landmines all over the schedule, but I think the schedule really, really falls in LSU's favor. Like, I really do think the schedule makers did LSU a favor. I just mentioned back-to-back road conference games. Like, LSU plays Ole Miss at home, and LSU gets an open date before they play Ole Miss, while Ole Miss is at South Carolina. So Ole Miss goes at South Carolina at LSU. LSU goes open date home against Ole Miss. It's a big advantage for LSU in that spot. Of course, LSU gets their open date before Bama. They get that game at home. OU at the end. Bama. The OU game at the end of the season. LSU gets a home game against Vanderbilt the week before. Just Vanderbilt being on the schedule in this year in the new 16-team 16-team SEC schedule. Like, I kind of like the schedule. I'd say the biggest thing is, man, you got to beat the SCs. You got to beat USC and South Carolina in September, because if you start 5-0, going into your open date before you host Ole Miss, I think you got a great chance to win that game in Baton Rouge, raucous environment, couple of undefeated teams likely. You move to 6-0, and I feel like at that point, you can absolutely go 4-2 the rest of the way. If you do that, you're 10-2, and I think you're in the playoff. You got a head-to-head win against Ole Miss. I reserve the right to change my opinion, and I'm not saying I'm locking that in, but that's kind of where I'm really leaning. And maybe it'll bite me because I'm assuming the offense is going to be really good again. I don't think they're going to be as good as they were last year. Don't misunderstand, but I'm assuming the offense is going to be really good again, and the defense is going to be better. And by better, I just mean good enough. So, anyway, Tyler Clark, morning, Matt. Our LSU baseball fall ball games air on the TV internet. How can we watch them? I don't know that they stream them, man, but you can go to the box and watch them. Rocky, Matt, should we expect any news on Caden Kent this week? Not that I've heard, but again, I was on vacation, and admittedly, when I am gone, I am not plugged in the way I am when I'm here, and I think you can all understand that. Like, I'm drinking tequila on the beach, not working phones to try to figure out the latest on the infielder in the portal. So I'll see if I can make some calls today and get you all an update. Air Tech, Bradley and Graphia, Stephen Miller just released Trey Morgan selected for Futures All-Star Game. I love that, man. Hitting 363 so far this season. Hey, Stephen, I texted Trey when you messaged me a few weeks back that he had been out of the lineup. I texted Trey and never heard back. But Stephen had pointed out to me that Trey had been out of the lineup. So I wonder if he was injured. And we couldn't see I never got an update on it or anything like that. But I'm curious if you ever heard anything. But that's awesome, man. Good for him. I'll make sure, Steve, let's make sure Muso knows about it for Tigers and the Pros. Ryan, scared of the day Joe Sloan leaves for a JC job and Underwood follows him. I think you're joking. I don't think Bryce Underwood's going to a junior college. Bubba Smith, good morning. Wade Polite's random question: Who was LSU's top target after Maneri retired? Oh God. To say top target is a little bit challenging. I mean, they definitely had conversations with Pat Casey, they flew Pat Casey here from Oregon State, and you don't fly in from Oregon. And actually, I don't think he was living in Oregon at the time. He was close wherever he was. But you don't come here if you're not serious about the job. And they were very far down the road with Kevin O'Sullivan, but there were some off-the-field things that maybe put that to a screeching halt, especially because of the time LSU was going through the Title IX lawsuit. A lot of former players were pushing hard for Mike Bianco. And Mike Bianco interviewed for the job. But those things, it's so hard to say. I mean, I understand the question, but it's so hard to say because coaching searches are always so fluid, man. It's because you have every coach that's contacted, their agents, media covering the LSU side of things, media covering the other schools side of things, the national media as well. You have boosters involved because you have to pay buyouts and salaries. So a lot of information leaks to a lot of different sources, and it's just very fluid. It changes almost by the minute based on how things are going. So it's a coaching search is a very hard thing to follow. It's why whenever I talk about it, always throw out the caveat, like it's never done until it's done, like contract signed, coach at the podium being announced. But there was very real mutual interest with Pat Casey and with Kevin O'Sullivan. And Mike Bianco interviewed for the job as well. But Scott flew up to Omaha to interview. Scott Woodward interviewed Jay Johnson in Omaha when he was there with Arizona at the College World Series. It was Woodward and one very prominent LSU baseball booster that went up there. And as I was told, they were just blown away by the interview and decided he was their guy. Cameron Emady, any other pitchers LSU's targeting or word on Clean now that Root is going to Arkansas? Did Root commit? My bad, y'all. I missed that. See, that's the problem with me being gone. When was that? So it was yesterday evening. My bad. Yeah. My apologies, y'all. Totally missed that last night. I'm sorry. That's a big get for Arkansas. I'm telling you, man, LSU felt really good about him last week. Before I left for vacation, I was kind of kind of whispered to me what LSU felt like its rotation was going to be next year, and Root was the number 2 guy in it behind Chase Shores. I'm telling you, last week they felt good about Zach Root. Arkansas, huh? Yeah, my apologies. I missed it last night. My apologies. I need to make a phone call today. A couple phone calls. Trivia. Good morning, Bryce Boudreaux, combat sports announcer. Okay, have a chance to speak with Will Campbell at Titan Combat Championship over the weekend, Texas Club. Yeah, man, how were the fights? I would have loved to have gone to a man. Casey and the guys doing a great job putting on those fights, and happy to help them promote it. And hopefully that promotion becomes a really good local, promotion where you can nurture some great fighters out of this area that we'll see go on. I mean, think of it almost like a minor league baseball organization, right? Where you hope to see the next generation of great fighters get their starts. So, heard A&M went hard at Vitello, but turned them down. No, you're locked in on LSU. What LSU does, but did you hear anything about this? Heard UVA coach also turned them down. The names that I was told that A&M did reach out to initially were Brian O'Connor from Virginia. Yes, you make the call to Tony Vitello. It's one of those where you call and you make him say no. And Skip Johnson. Skip Johnson at Oklahoma was the other one that I was told. Those were the 3. And I think they felt like they had to move quickly, which they did. I mean, you're trying to keep your roster together as best you can, so they moved quickly. GameCube Gamer, ready for some Tiger football. John Sibley Butler, hats off to Tennessee for winning the baseball natty. Everyone chatting about Texas rather than that a boy for Tennessee. Eric Hart, unless you know already, who do you think Brian Kelly brings to SEC Media Days? I do not know. Well, I'm certain Will Campbell's going to go. And I would guess they're going to bring. I mean, my guess would be Nussmeier, Campbell, and Perkins. I mean, I can't. They brought Josh Williams last year, and I know. Here's my. I don't. That would be my guess. And again, I know I'm maybe not the most help with all this stuff right now, guys, because I have been on vacation, so I'm not as plugged in and up to date. But so my apologies for that. But my feeling always on media days is that every team should be required to bring a quarterback. And I just want the interesting players. Media comes from all over for this. And the objective is to be able to tell interesting stories of players and coaches that fans want to hear from. A lot of coaches look at media days as a reward for veteran players. So sometimes they bring players who are like a 5th-year guy and the team guy and been around, and that's fine and good, but that's not why you don't hold the event as a reward for veteran players. You hold the event and ask the media to come help tell the stories for the league. And like, how can you have a media days without the most interesting players and the best players in the conference? So I think every team should be mandated to bring their quarterback. So for LSU this year, if I had to pick, the 3 players would be Nussmeier, Will Campbell, Harold Perkins. I just can't imagine. I can't imagine bringing anybody else. And if they don't, that's a failure. Like those are the 3 players that should go. And I think Carson Beck should be there, and Quinn Ewers should be there, and Jalen Milroe should be there, and Nico Iamaleava should be there, and Jackson Arnold from Oklahoma should be there. I mean, Connor Wegman, like all of the quarterbacks should be there. If you're not bringing your quarterback, I mean, my thing has always been, I think that the league should pick which players represent which teams. But sometimes coaches pick players to go to media days based on who's going to be the most polished, the most media savvy, who's not going to say anything to get him in trouble, that sort of thing, which I understand. I understand the coach's perspective, but again, that's not the point of the event. It's SEC football media days. You ask the media to come from all over to participate in this event. You have to bring interesting stories. Stephen Miller, another Summer League LSU update. Josh Pearson, second on the team in home runs, third in RBI out in Utah for the MGF Marshals. Okay. Pearson's going to be a really interesting one next year, man. does he stick as an everyday player? You have to assume that Larson and Jake Brown are going to be two of your starters. Um, you brought in the transfer from Auburn. Um, People talking about Jace Laviolette again. I don't think Jace Laviolette ends up at LSU. I hope I'm dead wrong on that. I hope somebody has information that I don't have that he ends up here. But I haven't heard that from anybody that I would deem to be a good source for me. But anyway, Brian Turner, blah, 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 Larry Garner. Good morning. Stephen Dillon Cruz named future All-Star. I did see that. Fired up for that. Wade, random question. Who is answered that. Earl Hurd entered the portal. Talked about that a bit earlier. Earl, that's just Thatcher Hurd giving himself options. Still fully expect. Same with Justin Lohr. Still fully expect Thatcher Hurd gets drafted and signed. David Bass, what's up? Last day in Cali. Enjoy it, man. Enjoy it. Rocky, if memory serves, Todd McClure was an All-American at OL. Don't think he was a tackle, though. He was not a tackle. Todd McClure was not yes, he was 1998 as a center. Yes. So McClure, Ben Wilkerson. Here are your first team All-Americans at center. Marvin Moose Stewart in 1935 and 36. George Tarasovic in 1951. Max Fugler in 1958. Nacho Albergamo was unanimous All-American in 1987. Todd McClure in 98. Ben Wilkerson was a consensus All-American in 2004. And Posick was an All-American in 2016. So those are your All-American centers in LSU history. Let's see. Caleb, I say we start this morning with Weller Antique Jugs. I'm going to pass on that, Caleb. A little coffee, going to drink some water, and going to go to the gym and do a cold plunge. That's what I'm going to do. I need to start to get the body right after days at the beach and drinking way too much tequila. Chance, Matt, you always say you handpick your sponsors for AFR and podcast. Do you have any say on Locked On advertisers? Good question. No. So those are network-wide sponsorships. So, like, for example, whenever you go to if you listen to Locked On, you'll hear FanDuel, Game Time, eBay Motors. Those companies come in and buy the entire network. So every host on the network is doing the same reads for that day. We do have the opportunity to sell local sponsorships within the show, but when you hear things like that, those are network wide. They're great companies, but so you will have sometimes. And it's the thing I would say, it's almost like when we have station-wide initiatives. For example, Parrish Construction and Roofing, we are sponsoring the 104.5 ESPN Baton Rouge coverage of SEC football media days. So you are going to hear Parrish across all the shows the week of SEC football media days and leading up to it, even though there are other people who may have different sponsorships and so on, but that's a network-wide or a station-wide sponsorship. So I know it's sometimes confusing, but it's a good question. So on Locked On, it is a network-wide sponsorship. Brett, just like Garrett Temple signed a 1-year deal to play with the Raptors, still playing at 38. That's awesome. Good for him, man. Great dude, too. Rocky Scone name dropping up in here with Coach Pete. I guess that's name dropping. I just thought y'all be interested to hear from Coach Pete. Cajun Country, when you come into Lafayette again? Next week on the 10th. Would love to be able to come say hello. There's new Rouses who would love a radio host visit. So Cajun Country, actually July the 10th, so next Wednesday, a week from tomorrow, is the 1-year anniversary party for the Lafayette and Lake Charles ESPN affiliation. So ESPN 103.7 Lafayette, 104.1 Lake Charles. So we're doing the full lineup of shows there. Same location in downtown Lafayette. And come on by and say hello. I will be in Lafayette doing my show next Wednesday, the 10th. How did you and Coach Pete become good friends? He seems like an amazing person. He is. I met Coach Pete almost 10 years ago now He was doing combine training at Traction over for Mac and Terrio and those guys, and they asked me to come do my show there one day. And so I did, like, as a combine preview show. So I did my show at Traction, and all the guys that were going through the combine came on the show. A lot of Alabama guys too, like Ashawn Robinson, Jerron Reed, a lot of the LSU guys, and then Coach Pete was there working with the defensive linemen every day. So Coach Pete came on and did a couple segments, maybe an hour with me. We had a great rapport. We talked a ton. And I was just in Traction every day working out that summer. So I saw Coach Pete all the time. We kind of maintained a friendship there. And then when Ed got the job in 17, or the interim in 16, and he brought Coach Pete in there, had that connection there, and then maintained when Coach Pete was on staff in 2017. And we've kept in touch, man. I mean, I don't want to misrepresent it to say like we're besties, but he's been so kind and generous to me, and I love talking to him, and I'm excited to see him today. E-Rock's prediction yesterday was 9-3. She might be right. Samuel Smith, because of how good quarterback has been for LSU, no one seems to be talking about downside of Nussmeier. It's only been all the good things about him. I'm still slightly concerned with the interceptions. You should be, Samuel. I mean, that's been the point that I make all the time. Like, as long as Nuss has been at LSU, I've said, look, he's got the physical ability, the size, the arm strength, the football IQ, son of a coach, great leader. He's got all those things, checks all those boxes. The one thing has been he's made bad decisions with the football in his limited playing time. In the bowl game, he was pretty much flawless. He was really good backing up Jaden this year when he got in, this past year when he got into the games, and he was really good in the spring. So I think we have seen some of that maturation. But you're right, over a 12-game schedule, we'll see if that continues to hold. Cortland, John trusted Nuss. Offense will be good, but different than last year. It'll definitely be different because your quarterback's not going to be the leading rusher in the SEC. Stat Dub, will LSU break the curse and win a season opener is the real question. I mean, LSU and USC are so similar. Replacing Heisman winning quarterbacks, defenses that were atrocious last year, new defensive coordinators coming in. I mean, they really are such similar football teams. It's when it's a game like that, it typically comes down to who makes fewer mistakes, right? Like, who's the one that's ready to play in a season opener, who makes fewer mistakes. And that hasn't been LSU the last 4 years. So I agree with you. Like, it's a big question, and I hope they win, because if they don't, your playoff hopes are on life support coming out of week 1. Ray Langlois, Ryan Pike, I'm in a head coaching job. Now, got it. Cortland, glad I landed on Jay. He's my favorite. Talked about Hurd already. Again, I think it's just Hurd giving himself options. If the draft doesn't go his way, I fully expect he will be drafted and signed. Johnny Hammersticks, what's the latest with Trey Holly? The last report was that the judge in that case recused himself, and they were not expecting it to go to trial until February. So that, if that holds, that means Trey Holly would not be available this season for LSU. Again, if. Joseph, good morning from Longmont, Colorado. Danny Braywick. Trey's under inactive on the future game. Brian, I believe this LSU offensive line is comparable to the 2012 Bama line, which to me is the greatest line of all time. Maybe not as productive, just as talented. Well, you got two for surefire high-level draft picks in your tackles. Dellinger and Frazier have been really good college starters. I don't know about their projectability to the next level. That might be the big difference, but John Pearson. Okay, got it. Okay, John is raking. Okay, thank you for the clarification, not Josh. Yeah, Madital said that makes more sense. I'll be curious about John too, because my understanding is he kind of projects as your kind of like a Cade Beloso, first base DH type guy. And if you don't have a lot of defensive versatility, then it's really limited where you can play. Um, um, you got to hit. I mean, it's just that simple. Like, the way you make sure you solidify your spot in the lineup is you hit, and you hit consistently. So that's going to be for John Pearson. Like, that's going to be his real challenge. Is you have to come in hitting, and you can't relent. Sorry, let's see. Amy, keep hearing you and others say LSU can't compete with the likes of Texas and Texas A&M with NIL. Nervous about what 5 years from now looks like for LSU. How will we keep up? Yeah, Amy, it's just a different kind of challenge, right? And the thing that I've always said about LSU, and you've heard me say, is LSU does have one competitive advantage, which is the dirt. It's the state where you are the only Power 5 in a talent-rich state where kids from the state want to come play at LSU. Will Campbell's a great example of that. Will Campbell could have left LSU after his first year and gone anywhere and could have left after last year, gone anywhere and gotten paid far more than he's making at LSU in NIL. But kid grew up just wanting to play for LSU, and he's going to be an All-American at LSU, and he wants to be a first-round draft pick from LSU and win a championship at LSU, and that's why he's still here. There are undoubtedly going to be guys that go to the highest bidder, and if that's the case, okay. They just have a different, they just have a different desire, different target. That's okay, but there's going to be plenty of talent in the state that stays, and so that's always going to be LSU's advantage. And LSU is ramping up and continuing to ramp up and organize its NIL efforts. I will tell you this. I don't know if y'all saw this yesterday. Maybe I'll talk about this today on Locked On LSU, but LSU does have a new head of its collective. It's Jared Wilson. You probably don't know that name. Jared has worked with us at Guarantee for a long time. His wife is the assistant volleyball coach out at LSU, Jill Wilson. So, like, literally my first day at Guarantee back in 2010, Jared does sales for Guarantee. And so Jared and I rode around, and he introduced me to, half a dozen clients when we were launching the station. So I've known Jared literally since 2010, like since January of 2010. Jill, his wife, left when she got the head coaching job at Virginia Tech. So she went to Virginia Tech and then to Ohio State, and now back at LSU. When Jill came back to LSU, we rehired Jared. And when Jared was at Virginia Tech and Ohio State, he sold for their network as well. So he's got a lot of experience dealing with clients in collegiate athletics and businesses that do deals across networks and all that sort of stuff. So that's a very familiar thing. And I think mostly what LSU needed was someone to organize its collective. So Carlos Spate is the guy who's been doing that, and Carlos doesn't get paid. He's doing it because he loves LSU. And he's done yeoman's work, considering he's also got a full-time job and a family. But, they've hired Jared now to continue the organization of the collective. And I think you're going to continue to see more intentional fundraising efforts. How they structure it moving forward will be interesting because of the possibility of moving collectives, with inside the athletic department now, as you're seeing some of that legislation move through. So the next year is going to be pivotal and formative, but mostly, Amy, LSU has to be competitive. They're not going to be Texas or Texas A&M ever. They're just not. You have to acknowledge they're never going to be that. And there's going to be some kids that are just going to go to the highest bidder. But the number one player in the country for 2025 is a quarterback from Michigan who is committed to LSU and not taking any other visits. Yes, LSU is going to be involved in NIL deals there, but they also have a lot to sell. And so you got to find the guys that are going to make the most sense. Some of them, if they're only going to the highest bidder, that's probably not going to be LSU. But LSU's got plenty to sell, and there's plenty of fish in the sea to be able to attract great talent on the roster, as you're seeing. And really, Amy, I know we've talked about it a bunch, but 2025 and especially 2026, there's a bumper crop in the state. LSU's got to put a fence around it. I mean, you got 3 players in the top 15 in the country, 2 from Baton Rouge, 1 from New Orleans. I mean, you got to get those guys from the state to stay home. If you do, I think you'll be fine. Mark Allen, him crying when Saban retired was great. Who's him? Him crying? Me? I wasn't crying. I was rejoicing. Phil Smith, Matt, don't know if you talked about it before with Underwood coming in. Who do you see hitting the portal? Yeah, Phil, let's see how this year plays out, right? Because, look, you have Ricky Collins here and then Colin Hurley as well, who's there. So, I mean, if Ricky Collins sits this year and if Nuss returns for 2025, I could see Ricky Collins probably trying to find a spot to go play with Hurley and Underwood behind him. But we'll see. Sometimes those things don't play out the way you thought they would. Like we all thought Nussmeier would transfer. When Walker Howard came in behind him and Jaden transferred in and then Jaden stayed for an extra year, those things don't always go the way you think that they will. So here on July the 2nd, 2024, it's really hard to try to project what would happen there. Let's see, thoughts on Paxton Kling entering the portal. Yeah, man, talked about that when it happened and him going to Penn State. It makes sense. I mean, he was, the hit tool never came around. He needs to go somewhere at a lower level where he can, got it. When head coach Pete on the show, like the day Nick retired, he did get emotional. Kling entering the portal, he's got to go somewhere where he can play every day and get 200 at bats. And that's not going to happen at LSU. He's going to be a defensive replacement, a pinch runner, late inning defensive replacement, part-time starter. And if you can go somewhere where you're going to play every day and get 200 bats in a season, take a step down in competition a little bit, he should do that. I mean, I think that's why he's gone. I don't think that is why he's gone. Bubba, Eric Andelsek was an All-American, wasn't he? He was, but Andelsek wasn't a tackle. Andelsek was actually, no, it doesn't list it. Actually, no, LSU doesn't list Andelsek here as an All-American. Maybe Andelsek, because I looked it up last night. I think Andelsek was an All-American by one of the organizations that was not a. I think he was an All-American by one of the organizations that's not. He was a 3rd-team All-American in '87 and two-time first-team All-SEC in '86 and '87. So first-team All-SEC, 3rd-team All-American in '87. So we're just talking about first-team All-Americans. FY, don't take a job where you don't get paid. Yeah, go Tigers. Trust me. Like when you're talking about Carlos, like somebody who loved LSU needed to organize the collective, and the collective isn't run by LSU. Remember, so like it was something he did. It was something he did because he loves LSU, and he should be complete. Like LSU fans don't know that. Like LSU fans don't know who Carlos Spade is, or that he has been running the collective since Bayou Traditions launch, and that. But I'm gonna tell you right now, man, like LSU and the athletic department, they owe Carlos Spade a debt of gratitude. Fans, because that guy has put in hours running a collective just out of his own love for LSU. And when the first iteration of the collective, what did they call it? The Go Collective. That thing was not very well organized and didn't function well, and LSU fell dramatically behind. When Go Collective went, defunct, and they launched Bayou Traditions, and Carlos got in charge of that thing, is when LSU actually started to build up its coffers. And they got a long way to go, but they're headed in the right direction. So anyway, okay. I think we're just about done. Shout out to Brock. Brock, Rock and Wine, y'all. Brock Rock and Wine, Saturday, July 27th. I'll see y'all there. Get your tickets, brortho.com, brortho.com. Inside of the South Stadium Club at Tiger Stadium. That alone is a reason to go. Food, wine, live music. It'll be a fun night on July 27th, late July. What else you got going on? You get to go to Tiger Stadium, hang out, and it's all raising money for the Brock Foundation, which provides, services to youth athletes across the greater Baton Rouge area, which is awesome. I mean, like the free physical event they did a few weeks back where I was, like, that's the Brock Foundation putting that on. Athletic training services for a lot of schools that can't afford to have full-time athletic trainers at their games. Brock sends their trainers there, a part of the Brock Foundation. So, great organization, man. Support if you can. And let's see y'all at Brock Rock and Wine on July 27th. And of course, Parrish, construction and roofing, parrishbuilt.com. All right, y'all have an awesome day. Check out Locked on LSU if you haven't already. And we'll see you for not for AFR, because I'm off all week. So we'll see you for Locked on LSU tomorrow. And Morning Scone. Peace.